You are Howard Bloom.
I've been called that, but actually I'm a cheap imitation.
Well, what makes the cheap imitation not Howard Bloom? What makes Howard Bloom Howard Bloom?
Well, that's a good question. You carry around in yourself a bundle of passions, whether you know they're there or not, and they drive you. And if you succeed in learning how to surf them and put them to your advantage, you can have a magnificent, astonishing, amazing life. A lot of hard parts, a lot of difficult parts, a lot of pain, but somehow you'll end up overcoming every pain but the last one.
So, what made you fall in love with being a publicist in the entertainment world?
It was very weird. I mean, I fell in love with science when I was 10 years old because it looked like it gave me a refuge. Nobody wanted me in Buffalo, New York. My parents didn't pay any attention to me. Other kids hated me and drove me out of their activities. They wouldn't let me anywhere near their activities, as a matter of fact. And they picked on me and all kinds of stuff. So there was no room for me. And one day I am sitting in my family's big living room, and it's dark because the curtains are drawn, even though it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and there will probably be wonderful things to see out the window. And you know how you know the location of every book in your parents' home? Well, there was a book I didn't know the location for, and it was in my hands. God knows where it came from. And it said, "The first rule of science is the truth at any price, including the price of your life." And it told the story of Galileo, and it told it all wrong. It said Galileo would have been willing to go to the stake and be burned alive in order to continue to profess his truth, that the earth moved around the sun, not the other way around. That's all untrue. But it's what I needed to hear. I needed to hear a message of courage. And the second one was, look at things right under your noses if you've never seen them before, and then proceed from there. Look at things that you and everybody around you take for granted, and then proceed from there. And it gave the example of Anton von Leeuwenhoek, who invented the microscope, looking down at a fluid and seeing what he called animalcules, little things with whip-like tails, invisible little things, scooting along with seemingly their own willpower. The book didn't tell me another little fact, which is that the fluid he was looking at was human sperm. And so what is the most readily available source for fresh human sperm when you've just managed to grind a lens so that it will zero in on really teeny-weeny things for the very first time in human history? Where do you get that sperm from? Well, in other words, Anton von Leeuwenhoek was willing to confess to masturbation in his letters, at least implicitly, to the Royal Society. Well, it didn't tell me that. What it basically gave me these first two principles. And for the first time, it put me in the presence of two people who couldn't throw me out. They could not say, get out. And they couldn't say, get out, Sean, because they were dead. And for the first time in my life, I had a gang I could hang around with. So I'd been in science for 12 and a half years when I realized I was an atheist. And when I realized I was an atheist, well, I first of all had to tuck the notion very far in the back of my mind because my bar mitzvah was coming up, and it was the first party I was ever going to be invited to, and I was actually going to get presents, lots and lots of them, and the subject of attention of the party would be me. And I mean, who can resist that? And if I was an atheist, no bar mitzvah. So I kept it, in the dark closet at the back of my mind until I'd finished signing or writing all of the thank you notes, which took 2 months. And all of a sudden, okay, I'm an atheist. But this took place in something like June. And in September, only 2 months later, the Jewish high holidays come. And my parents never go to temple. But for the holidays, no, it's a whole different scene. These are sacred. These are important. So they tried to drag me to high holiday services. And in Buffalo, my hometown, on Richmond Avenue, while I was holding on to the door frame of our blue Fraser, it's an automobile, an old kind of automobile, and they were grabbing at my ankles and trying to get me pried from the car, I realized there's an intensity of passion going on here. My parents feel very strongly about this. And by now, I've spent a quarter of my life in science, so I've read a lot of anthropology books. And every tribe I've ever read about anywhere on the planet has also felt very strongly about similar things. So if the gods are not up there, and if the gods are not down there, where are they? Well, that means they've got to be in here someplace. And that means, Bloom, your job, remember, the truth at any price, including the price of your life, and look at things right under your nose as if you've never seen them before. Your job is not to look at things right under your nose. Your job is to look at things right behind your nose. And from that point on, my job, one of them in science, was to find the gods inside of us.